The majority of the Committee on Health, Human Services, and Elderly Affairs, to which is referred House Bill 1811 FN, an act repealing statutory immunization requirements for children. Having considered the same, report the same with the following amendment and the recommendation that the bill ought to pass with amendment. Representative Matt Drew for the majority of the committee. The minority of the committee, having considered the same and being unable to agree with the majority, report with the following resolution: resolved that it is inexpedient to legislate. Representative William Palmer for the minority of the committee. The amendment is 0644H, printed in House Record 7 on page 92. Questions on the adoption of the amendment? Are you ready for the question? This will be a division vote. Members, take your seats. The questions on the adoption of the committee amendment 0644H. This is a division vote. If you're in favor, press the green button. Opposed, press the red. Voting stations are open for 30 seconds.
Representative Foreman.
Have all members present had an opportunity to vote? The House will attend to the state of the vote. 166 in the affirmative, 171 in the negative. The amendment fails. Now the motion is ought to pass on House Bill 1811 FN. Representative LaMontagne is recognized to speak. Hold up. Sorry, never mind. My bad. Representative Potenza is recognized to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable colleagues, where there is risk, there must be choice. The sky is not falling without mandates, and the arguments claiming otherwise simply do not hold water. Much of what we hear from the departments, the special interests, the lobbyists, and pharmaceutical stakeholders is doublespeak. This bill does not prohibit vaccination. It restores individualized medical decision-making in circumstances where no population-level risk exists. Mandates have no place in a constitutional republic, particularly when the evidence demonstrates real harm, serious implications, and loss of life. Denying a person the right to informed consent is a denial of their fundamental human rights. Informed consent is not a technicality or a courtesy. It is the ethical line that separates medicine from coercion. The existence of my rights does not extinguish yours. Where your rights begin, mine do not end. A society that claims to respect bodily autonomy cannot selectively suspend it when doing so becomes politically convenient. And let me be clear about something else. A system that requires people to ask permission to exercise their rights is not freedom. An exemption is not choice. An exemption, it is an admission that the mandate should not exist in the first place. In a free society, the default position is liberty, not compliance, followed by bureaucratic forgiveness. People should not have to disclose private medical or religious information, fill out forms, or seek approval from the government to control what happens to their own bodies. That is not freedom. That is not choice. Mandates do not belong in a free society. Before I give this next example, we need to acknowledge a basic truth. All medical interventions carry risk, including vaccination. There is no such thing as a risk-free medical procedure, which is precisely why informed consent and bodily autonomy matter. If we accept the logic used to justify vaccine mandates, we must confront its implications honestly. Ask yourself this: would it be ethical or lawful to kill one healthy human being to save 10 others through forced organ donation? The answer is unequivocally no. We reject that scenario because we recognize a foundational principle. No human being may be reduced to a means to an end. Bodily autonomy is not overridden by utilitarian math. Yet vaccine mandates rely on that very same reasoning, that an individual's bodily autonomy may be violated for a perceived collective benefit. This is where the argument collapses under its own weight. If bodily autonomy is inviolable in every other area of medicine, organ donation, blood transfusion, participation in clinical trials, it cannot subtly become conditional when the subject is vaccination. Ethical standards do not change based on political urgency. Supporters of mandates often speak out of both sides of their mouths. They champion my body, my choice in one context while dismissing the same principle in another. They claim to support informed consent while endorsing policies that punish refusal, coerce compliance, or deny employment, education, or participation in society. Consent obtained under threat is not consent, it is coercion. Public health does not require abandoning ethics. Trust, transparency, and voluntary participation are not obstacles to public health. They are its foundation. Once the state claims the authority to override informed consent, there is no limiting principle left. At that point, the issue is no longer about vaccines, it's about power. Who decides when your body is no longer your own? The government? Not on my watch. A free society does not compel medical procedures through force or penalty. It persuades with evidence, respects individual judgment, and upholds human dignity, even when doing so is inconvenient. Please press the green button and support the committee's recommendation. Thank you.
Representative Lemon-Sain is recognized to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. HB 1811 will repeal all of the childhood immunization requirements that have been keeping children safe from potentially serious diseases for decades. You have heard that this bill is about restoring trust in medical authorities and informed consent. Informed consent for childhood vaccines takes place in the doctor's office between the provider and parent. We already have that. This bill does not change that. Rather than restore trust, this will decrease trust in vaccines. For the state to say that we no longer require vaccines for children to go to school suggests that to the public that the state was wrong about them before, and that maybe vaccines aren't safe after all. This will reduce vaccination rates across the state. Declining vaccination rates around the country have led to diseases we once had under control to come back, as we have seen with measles. A decade ago, we had an average of 200 measles cases a year. As of February 13th, the CDC has confirmed 900 cases so far in 2026. Empirical evidence from any injury resulting vaccines in the current schedule is 1 in a million. Measles will kill 1 in 1,000 infected children. Our committee heard overwhelming testimony from public health experts and every medical professional association in the state, from primary care providers, nurses, pediatricians. They all begged with us not to pass this bill, but the majority chose to ignore this in favor of anecdotal testimonies in their previously held convictions. It does not give more parental choice. We already allow exemptions, no questions asked. That's not coercion. But if passed, this bill will threaten public health programs that protect all of us, including the unvaccinated. We have heard that other countries don't have vaccine requirements and have high vaccination rates. Well, those countries also have universal health care and high participation in all aspects of health care. In Japan, one country cited people visit their doctor an average of 9 times a year. They have a primary care-based pro-wellness healthcare system. We have some kids showing up to school that haven't been to a doctor in years. Now, the committee amendment, which failed, would have just left polio, and many people were afraid of not having a polio requirement anymore. But do we really think polio was the only disease we have to worry about? Last year, I told this body about my husband's father becoming permanently paralyzed from polio in 1955. Let me tell you another story. A good friend's older brother died in 1958 from meningitis, a brain infection now prevented by the Hib vaccine. Jerry never knew his brother because Jeffrey died before Jerry was born. His parents lost their first son, a healthy 2-year-old, who succumbed rapidly to his infection and died in the hospital in the middle of the night. It was a tragedy from which his mother never fully recovered. There seems to be a generational amnesia about what childhood diseases were like before universal vaccines. As a late baby boomer, I had several illnesses like mumps and chickenpox. The vast majority of children survived these episodes without serious illness. But many children were very sick, became permanently disabled, or died from diseases we now protect them with vaccination. Prior to 1963, measles resulted in annually around 48,000 hospitalizations and 500 deaths a year. Measles was the leading childhood cause of deafness and death. My brother, at 5 years of age, was in the hospital for an entire month from pneumonia resulting from his measles infection. The American Academy of Pediatrics find that our 9 vaccines required from school prevents every 10 years 1 million deaths and 32 million hospitalizations, saving over $500 billion in direct medical costs. Do we want to bring that back? In other words, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Science has since taught us that vaccines significantly reduce the emergence of the virus and later complications such as shingles from chickenpox, brain damage from measles, and male sterility from mumps. What is right down the road if HB 1811 passes? New Hampshire has the lowest vaccination rate for measles in New England. Do you want to be the legislature that ushers in the next outbreak of measles a year or 2 down the road, costing the state millions of dollars in healthcare costs? and perhaps the lives of a few children. Please believe in public health, believe in science, and vote against the OTP. And I ask for a roll call vote.
Representative Drew is recognized to speak for the committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to start off again with what this bill is not. HB 1811 is not a ban on vaccines. It does not reduce the availability of the vaccines. It does not interfere with state or federal recommendations or funding. It does not stop your doctor from administering any vaccines to you or your children. What it does do is remove the vaccine mandate from statute. What a vaccine mandate does is force some children to accept risk and injury in order to protect others. I urge you to listen to the opponents of this bill. They will tell you about the dangers of contagious disease, which are real. They will tell you about the benefits of the vaccines. If they mention safety at all, they will assure you that the vaccines are very safe and effective. What they won't ever do is talk about the risks in detail. This is a narrative playbook designed to elicit compliance. The same narrative was deployed to support the COVID shot, and for the same reason. Those who have been vaccine injured know this narrative because they've heard it all before, even as their vaccine injuries were occurring. Family after family has been belittled, mocked, and dismissed. Their young children quietly sacrificed on the altar of public health. That is the uncomfortable truth about vaccines. While they may work to protect the public from contagious disease, there is also a large group of people who have been hurt by these vaccines. Vaccine injuries are real, and they are not nearly as rare as opponents of this bill would have you believe. There are a number of people in this room, your neighbors and colleagues, who have been injured by vaccines mandated by our state, and they have been ignored. I want you to look them in the eye and tell them that yes, you believe that their children should be forced to suffer so that yours can be safe. Don't force the risk of mandates on their children. Vote for this bill. Thank you.
Does the member yield for a question?
Yes, I do.
Member yields. You may inquire.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would you believe that vaccines are not very safe and that they are so unsafe that they are the only medicinal product that has to have a liability shield so that people can't sue the manufacturer?
I would in fact believe that, yes.
Does the member yield for a follow-up?
Yes, I do.
And maybe next time the member should just sign up for a speech. Would you believe that I really mean that?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well noted. Would you believe that vaccines are not very safe at all and that the National Vaccine Injury Compensation Program has had to pay out over $5 billion to compensate those who have been injured by vaccines and their claims have been substantiated?
Yes, I would believe that.
Okie dokie. Representative McDonald requests a roll call. Is that sufficiently seconded? That is sufficiently seconded. This will be a roll call vote. Members, take your seats. All right, the question is the motion of ought to pass on House Bill 1811, and Representative Weber is recognized for a parliamentary inquiry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if I know that correlation is not causation, and if I know that childhood diseases present less of a threat now than they did before, and that is not because they are not dangerous, but because they are relatively rare. And if I remember that my daddy dragged his left leg behind him for all of his life after the age of 2 because of his polio, would I remember and vote red?
Representative Wayne McDonald is recognized for parliamentary inquiry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if I know that parents want to take care of their children's health and make their own best decisions as to how they proceed to do so, and Mr. Speaker, if I know that this bill seeks to achieve that end by respecting the rights of parents, and Mr. Speaker, if I know that parents will not be prevented from getting their children vaccinated under this bill, and Mr. Speaker, if I know that this legislation is consistent with other pro-parent and pro-family bills we have already passed in this chamber, then, Mr. Speaker, would I press the green button and support the ought to pass motion? Thank you.
The question is the ought to pass motion on House Bill 1811. This is a roll call vote. If you're in favor, press the green button. Opposed, press the red. Voting stations are open for 30 seconds. Have all members present had an opportunity to vote? The House will attend to the state of the vote. 155 in the affirmative, 192 in the negative. The motion fails. Representative Palmer moves an expedient to legislate. Are you ready for the question? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? No. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted.